right? So let me talk about testng today. Right, till now we have just made simple Java files. All right, we never built any test case. Okay, so testng is a simple framework which helps us to build test cases. All right, fine. For example, I'll just give you a simple example. When you work practically, okay, right, then there are a lot of aspects. For example, there are different test cases which have to be executed. Okay, right. Now, when you are executing these tests, you need to read your data from the Excel file or a properties file. All right. You need to also generate some reports. Okay, fine. Now you need to have proper screenshots of the errors in the reports and all. Okay, right. You have to have proper log. Fine. All right. And along with that, along with this requirement, you also have to integrate your project with continuous integration like Jenkins, or you want Selenium Grid, which can run the test cases parallelly. Okay, fine. So to manage all this, we use a centralized framework. Okay, right. This centralized framework, what it does is that it will read the data from the properties file. It will invoke the test cases and it will execute the test cases. Fine. And it will help you generate the reports and connect to Jenkins and all. So this centralized controller at times, people they use JUnit. Okay, then there is another thing as testng. Okay, there is something known as BDD as well, behavior driven development, right? So in that you have got Cucumber. People use that as well. Fine. So it's completely your choice. Okay, fine. So out here, let us start with testng. The first thing is that you have to install testng inside Eclipse. Okay, testng is more famous than JUnit, and most of the people they use testng with Selenium. So that's why I'm taking testng. Fine. Okay. So the first thing is that you have to uh, go to Google and type testng download. Yeah. Just type testng Eclipse. testng is installed as an add-on inside your Eclipse, right? Hold on. Right, you go to this first link and then click on this link, install the plugin, and yeah. Okay, so there is a URL over here. Okay, update site for release. Okay, Copy this URL. Okay, go to Eclipse, and in Eclipse, you go to help, install new software, paste the URL, hit the enter button. Okay, it's taking a little time for me. For you, it's not going to take time. I think there is some issue at my end. So you will see testng written over here, and you select it and you click on next, 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 and your Eclipse will also restart and it will get installed as a plugin inside Eclipse. Fine. Okay. Now what you can do is that you can create a new Java project inside Eclipse. Right, and I'll call it testng testng project. Okay. Inside the source folder, I'll make a new package known as test cases. All right, and I'll make a new class known as sample test. Okay. Now in testng, there is no main function. Okay. There is no main function in testng. There are annotations. Like you have annotation at the rate test public void do login. Okay, you move your mouse over this error and you will see the option add testng library. Okay, click on this and you will see the option then to import the test annotation. Import it. All right, you have to add testng as a library in your project. Okay, and then you have to import the jars. Right. Okay, the files from the jars over here. All right, fine. Now this at the rate test means that it's a test case. There is no main function in testng. Okay, there are annotations like this. Fine. All right, you can type over here and system.out.println. It's a little slow. Yeah, trying to log in. Right. And you can simply right click on your Java file and you'll get the option as run as testng test and you can simply run it. And when you run it, you will see that at the bottom, you get a message like this that total test runs are 1 and failures are 0 and skips are 0. Right? Okay, I hope you have got my point. Fine. Similarly, you can make another test case like at the rate test public void search for email. Okay, and you can print inside it system.out.print. Alan, searching for email, and then you can write open email. So when you run this, in the output, you see it runs, total test runs are 3. Okay. So it runs all the 3 tests and you get the output over here. But the output is the order of printing is not the order which you wanted. Like you wanted do login first, search for email, then after that open email. The order over here is somewhat jumbled up. Okay. Don't think that testng will run the tests in the order you have mentioned in this file. Okay. Testng will not follow that order. Okay. You can make them in order. You can write over here priority equals to 1. Priority will help you to order the test cases. You can write priority equals to 2 and priority equals to 3. Fine. Now if you run this, they will run in the order which you wanted, right? Okay. So you can prioritize your test cases as well. All right. Now, at times, if you click on this link, results of running the class, then you see you get a visual kind of a stuff out here that what happened to the test cases. Right. Also, if you right click on the project and you refresh the project, you will get a test output folder. Every time you run your project, you will get this. Even if I delete this, right, and if I run this Java file again, you click on simple run on the top, it can be executed. And when I run this, and if I refresh my project, I'll get it again. Okay, if I open index.html out here, this is index.html. Fine, you can open it and you will see that these are the default HTML reports of testng. These are not so effective. These are not so good as well. Right. Okay. But yes, since we are studying it, you can start with it. But later on, we'll be generating better reports. Those are known as extent reports. All right, we'll be primarily working with extent reports. I'll teach you how to generate extent reports as well. Fine. Now in testng, you can fire assertions. You can assert whether a certain element is there on the, suppose there is a certain element which is supposed not to be there on the web page, and you have to fail the test case in case it is not there. So how do you pass or fail the test cases in testng? That is done using assertion. Right. I'll just create a new class known as assertions underscore testng. Okay, hold on. No main function. I'll just create a new test over here at the rate test public void test app. Right. Now, in case of testing, when we do testing, what do we have? We have some expected value. All right. We generally keep this figure inside the Excel file or a properties file. Right. Okay. And we have an actual value. We get this from driver, from WebDriver, that is driver.findElement or whatever it is, the commands we fire. Okay. We have to compare the expected value with the actual value. That's what we do in test ng or the regular work as well, which we do. Okay, the regular testing. We have to compare these two values. We compare it manually, right, and then mark the test case pass or fail. Over here, we use the class known as assert. Fine. Assert class is used to assert or is used to compare stuff. If you write assert and you move your mouse over the class, you won't get anything. If you put a dot mark, you will see a lot of functions. Okay, please select assert equals function from org.testng package. All right, sometimes people use JUnit package. Okay, don't use the JUnit package. Use org.testng package, right? And give the value out here. That is the first value you have to give is the actual value, then the expected value. So if you run this code, you see that it says zero failures. But if I make my expected and actual value different, fine. And if I run this, then it will give me an error. All right, fine. So this is the thing. All right, you get a failure over here. Sometimes you have to use a different assert function. For example, if I write over here, right, and when the test case fails, if you go to results over here, it will mark it red. All right. Now, oh, sometimes you have to write like this, assert dot assert true. Okay, you have to give some condition and a message. Now, what is this? This is one way you can use assertion. This is another function of assertion. Assert true. Okay, first let me demonstrate the outcome of this function. Then I'll tell you how it is used. All right. Just 1 minute, guys. Let me connect my charger. Okay. Just 1 minute. Let me connect my charger. Okay, fine. So out here, if you mention a condition, fine. If I mention, say, false over here, and this message is actually your error message. Okay, if you can mention some kind of a condition over here, if that condition evaluates to false, then this kind of error message, whatever error message you write over here, will be printed or will be reported in the reports, right? If you run this, then the assertion will fail, right? In the results of running assertion, you will see that some error message will be printed. Okay, you can give a condition like 7 greater than 6. Now this is true. Okay, if I run this code, this will actually pass the tests. But if I write 7 greater than 69 and if I run this, you see that you get an error. So over here, you can say maybe you can give a function like is element present. Remember this function we had made? Okay, it used to return you true if the element is present on the web page and false if it is not. So if it returns you false, you can throw the error message that element not found. So this is how you can use assertion. Okay, right. So sometimes there is one more assertion function. Sometimes you are very sure that your test case has failed. Suppose you are on a web page where you should have been seeing the logout button, but logout button is not there. So that means 100% you have failed the test. Or you wanted some element to be there on the web page and that element is not there. Fine, so the test case has to be failed. Or you get a error like 404 or 500 error code, right? So you want to then report a simple failure, a deliberate failure. In that case, you can write assert dot fail. This will simply fail the test case. All right. You can mention the failure reason as well if you want. Right. So when you run this, you see that it fails. Right. Now, suppose you are running 100 test cases together. You are batch running 100 test cases. How to do the batch running? I'll tell you. You will come to know everything. Right. Suppose you are batch running 100 test cases. And out of those 100, you don't want to execute 20 of them. So you have to skip 20 test cases. Right. Or for example, in this batch, we have 3 test cases. I don't want to run search for email test. So what we do, you can write over here in testng, you can write throw new skip exception. Skipping the test. Right, you import this. Right, so this line is throwing an error because it's saying that you're skipping the test over here, then this line virtually becomes impossible to execute. Right. So when we practically work, we keep some condition that if some XLS file flag is equal to true. That means in the Excel file we keep the information whether to run the test case or not. If it is true, then you have to skip the test case. Otherwise, you'll have to continue when we work practically. So over here, I am just writing this single line. Okay, just to explain you. So I'll comment this line, right? And if you run this code, in the results, you see search for email is actually mentioned yellow. It is mentioned yellow because it is skipped. All right, you can skip a test case. Now, if search for email is getting skipped, then why is open email getting executed? Because if you are not running search for email, then open email should not be running. Open email test is dependent on search for email, or even search for email test fails. If I write over here assert.fail, right? Even if I fail search for email test, right? The other test open email it executes. This fails, it executes. So you don't want this one to run. There is a dependency between the test cases. So you can also introduce that with testng. You can write over here in case of depend email, you can write depends on methods, and you can give in an array the multiple methods on which this function is dependent. So one of them is this. If you want to specify multiple, you can put a comma and specify multiple methods. Right now, when you run this, if search for email test skips or fails, then open email will skip. See that it is yellow. Okay, even if search for email test instead of failing, if it skips, then also the other one will skip. Okay, anybody with any questions? All right. Now, there are annotations in testng. There are predefined annotations. All right. For example, this is test annotation. Now there are other annotations as well. Right. You can keep an annotation like at the rate before test. Hold on. I'll show you what it does. And you have annotation at the rate after test. Right. After test is executed after executing all the test cases. And before test case will be executed before executing all the tests. There is a predefined order. It doesn't matter. I have to keep it over here. I can keep it anywhere in the file at the bottom as well. Right. But if I run my test, you will see that it prints before test in the beginning and after test in the end. So suppose before executing all the tests, you have to open the browser. So in before test, you can keep the code to open the browser. Fine. And in after test, you can keep the code to maybe close it. Fine. Then you have another annotation at the rate before method. Okay, you can keep these annotations anywhere in the file. Okay, the order of executing will remain same. There is a predefined order. Okay, and I'll type over here. Sorry, before method and right. And similarly, you have after method. Right, and you run this. You see that it prints total test runs are 3, failures are 0, and after method is printed over here. Okay, after every test is executed. Okay, login test, email test, open email, before method and after method are executed before and after every test case. Okay, suppose for every test you want to generate a new report. So in before method, you can initialize the report. In after method, you can finalize the report. So it's something like that. All right. So these annotations will be used. Fine. Okay. Now there is something known as generation of extent reports, running the test cases multiple times with a single set of data. That can also be done uh, with this testng. Fine. Right. For example, I'll take a case that is suppose I have a class known as registration test. Okay. And I have a test case in it at the rate test public void register. Okay, I have few registration parameters like a username, password which the user wants, his phone number, his city, right? So suppose I want to register multiple users. I want to run this particular test case different times, multiple times with different sets of data. Okay, so for that, there are predefined steps which you need to follow. The first step is that you have to make annotation known as at the rate data provider. Okay, and make this function which returns you a two-dimensional object array. Okay, so practically what we do is that we make a two-dimensional array which has got certain number of rows and certain number of columns. Okay, number of columns are equal to number of parameters in the test case. Okay, the data for execution of the first uh, iteration will be held in the first row of this two-dimensional array. The second row will hold the data for second iteration, third row will hold data for third iteration, like this. Okay, this cell is 0, 0, this cell is 0, 1, okay, this is 0, 2, right, 0, 3. You have got cells like this, 1, 0, 1, 1, fine. Okay, so you have a two-dimensional object array inside which you can keep cells like this, right? All right, and every row will hold data for a certain iteration. Okay, if you want to run the test cases 4 times, then you will have 4 rows. If you want to run it 10 times, you'll have 10 rows. And number of columns will be equal to number of data sets you have, like username, password. Okay, so you make a two-dimensional object array. Say I'll make it with 2 rows and 3 columns. That means I want to run the test case 2 times. And in every execution, there are 3 data sets. So you can fill this up like row 1, you can write data 0 is equal to some data like A1, right? You can fill up the array, the 3 columns, right? What is there showing? Cannot convert. Oh, I'm sorry. Polish mistake. So this is 0th row, first column, 0th row, second column, right? And then similarly, you can give your row number 2 as well. Okay, data. And instead of 0, you have to write 1 here. B1, B2. Just taking some sample data names. All right, so I have to run the test case 2 times. So I gave 2 rows, and every time you have got 3 columns, so 3 data sets. You'd write like this, and you write return data. So the first step is that you have to create a data provider for the test case which has the data. So later on we'll be reading this data from the Excel file, not putting it like this. We'll be reading the data from Excel file and putting in this array. Right now I've kept it like this. The second step is that you have to link the test case with the data provider. You have to tell the test case that the data provider is coming up from this function. The data is coming up from this function for this test case. And the third and the most important thing is number of input parameters in this function should be equal to number of columns you have. Okay, you have 3 columns, then you should have 3 input parameters like string username, string password, and string say city. All right, fine, you can print them. Username, password plus city. Okay, right? So that's it. testng will automatically come to know. It will start this register test. It will see that fine data is coming up from this data provider. It will enter the data provider. It will understand that I have to run the test case 2 times. So first time it will run, it will pass over this set of data to the test case. Username, this first value will go into username, second will go into password, third will go into city. Right. So when you run this code, you see that the output is printed like this. It's running 2 times. Total test runs are 2. In the results of running the test also, you will see it's executed 2 times. So you can run one test case multiple times this way with different sets of data. Okay, right. So this is about major features of testng. Okay, I'll stop here.